Hey everyone, welcome back to arguably the most exciting episode that we are recording here on the Instones podcast. I have Kai Dickens here, the creator and producer of the Telepathy Tapes. And I know that everyone here in this audience of mine who shares the role of profound autism mother and caregiver knows and is privy to the work of Kai and her team. They have illuminated, and what I shared with her before we pressed record, they have illuminated not only the lives of non-speakers and children like ours, but they continue to shatter all assumptions about what meaning and what our shared consciousness is and the reality that which we live in. And from the moment a mother or caregiver parent becomes or has handed the label of a profound autism mother, people start handing you these narratives and you realize that we're not here to accept all of those. We're here to challenge all those assumptions, presumptions, and statements about the children that we do have. And Kai, thank you so much for being here on Instones today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on this podcast. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. You know, I said before, we're so appreciative of your work. The work that so many of us continue to try to do every day is to sit in the role of being an unconditional care, love leader of our family, and specifically to the mothers leading with that deep maternal instinct. You know, I know that probably shines through the families that you record and illuminate. Your body just knows something's different around these kids. Could you share with me about your experience, like of how that became illuminated and you feel that within your body and the connectivity of them?
Yeah. I think that just, kind of going back, I really had not been in the world of non-speakers with autism before this project. My brother is on the spectrum, my older brother. And there's plenty of people on the spectrum in my family,
Mm-hmm.
as often is the case, I think, for many
Exactly.
Americans now. And non-speakers with apraxia is it's a much different thing. I don't even think it can be in the same category as other different, variants of the spectrum or Asperger's. Like it's completely different. I mean, the first time I think anyone on my crew or me, was with a non-speaker, I was with Mia from Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Right.
our first episode. And there was just this like buoyancy and love in the room. There was just such a purity of being. And I think, again, I don't know what it is about working with non-speaking individuals, and if it's just everyone is putting their best foot forward to make sure that someone feels really safe and comfortable, especially if they can't, command their body the way they sometimes wish they could, or that type of thing. Or if it's truly just like a non-speaker maybe being able to help impact the mood and energy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that every non-speaker I've ever been around, it's like some of the warmest, most loving rooms I'm ever in. I think I've never met a non-speaker who's brought down the mood. I mean, it's always
Exactly.
a
Exactly.
beautiful experience.
There always seems to be this fluidity when you come in so deeply like vulnerable to a
Mhm.
world of non-speakers. You know, one of the things that as a mother you're always told from the beginning is, assume competence, right? It's
Mhm.
that's like a blanket thing across the whole spectrum and disability. And I think early on in
Mhm.
the journey for all of us, that nestles close to the hope of, okay, if I assume competence, then competence on every angle is going to like rise. And it sort of gets intertangled with what I believe is false hope, per se,
Mhm.
of the typical
Mhm.
trajectory. But when you presume competence, but that also means the shattering of the assumptions of what you believe competence is,
Right.
right? I mean, I have been, I've sat in spell to communicate sessions with my children at their school, and both of my children, after answering a question about, say, monarch butterflies or something like that, after learning about them with their teacher, they look right at me. Like the confidence and the direction and the boldness of, Mom, do you see me? Mom, do you see me answer this so confidently with such conviction that how can you not take in that energy and that shared energy of assuming their competence? And I remember thinking that has to be baked into this equation of what assuming competence really means, because it's actually shattering some of your own or our own typical assumptions about reality.
Yeah. Oh, and I think maybe thousands of years, people have assumed that behavior was a reflection of intelligence, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
And we know that's not true, especially with people who have apraxia and cannot control their body.
Mhm.
Your body's constantly kind of betraying you in a way. You might want
Right.
to do this, but it does this instead. And that doesn't mean that you're not in there and that you don't understand. It just means your body's not agreeing. And I think that is like one of the biggest assumptions that needs to be shattered. And I
Yes.
think people still respond that way in schools. I mean, I get letters from parents who will say, well, the teacher said it doesn't matter that I'm doing this to him, or it doesn't matter that I'm sitting him in the closet when the rest of the class is doing this because he doesn't know anyway. And it's like, that is terrible.
Right.
And so
Right.
I do think that a lot of people still make horrific assumptions based on behavior.
They do. And I believe all behavior is communication on some level.
Hmm.
And I also think we need to accept that in a way that then creates more concrete rules within the classrooms
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
children like this. I feel so lucky that my children are in a learning environment that accepts these practices on how they communicate and seeking to grow, and removing blanket statements about who these children are.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think we utilize your work from, I always think about us like we're like your little guerrilla warfare pods across the country, right? Like we get to hear your work as the mothers of the non-speakers and then take that in and go, okay, how do we incorporate this into their classrooms of maybe people that don't have access
Hmm.
to implementing this on the ground
Yeah.
level?
Yeah. And I think spelling, I mean, I do think there's going to be a huge transformation around spelling soon,
Mhm.
and I think Asha is still, digging their heels in around their statements, but just talking to a lot of people that are working on the ground, like there is an army of people. And what's wonderful is it's a lot of mainstream like listeners who just have become allies, I think, to
That's right.
non-speakers and their parents. I don't know if you felt that of shift. And
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it was interesting to me. Again, I've always been very open to this idea of shared consciousness.
Mhm.
I'm the father of a physicist, or I'm sorry, I'm the daughter of no, not the father. I'm the daughter. My father's a physicist. And it's something that Dr. Mossbridge and I share as well. And said, we've been around the science community and I've been sort
Mhm.
of understanding the role of the metaphysical and my entire life. And when people started reaching out after listening to your first season's episodes, it was the people that reached out who I've always felt I had this innate connectivity to, whether I met them once at a conference or once in my own podcast journey or something that said, hey, have you gotten to listen to this yet? And they become these deep, deep allies for
Mhm.
my own mission, but also, yours on the largest of scales. It's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And some of those allies I know are working really hard to try to get spelling covered by Medicaid or to try to get the occupational therapist group to validate spelling and forget the speech pathologist and some kind of digging their heels in. And so I do think there's going to be a wide change because it's just too many people are catching on that I think this is a human rights violation to take a communication form away from a huge group of people and a growing population of people.
I had this conversation, you know, I feel ethically bound to show the full humanity of my children,
Mhm. Yeah.
not from a sense of showing them, but
Mhm.
revealing it to those who have a similar experience. And I think that that's where this shared consciousness, the revelations around it, the people that are growing this from all different aspects are coming together and realizing none of us are looking to be the stars of the show. We're looking to just illuminate what
Right.
this can mean for all these caregivers in similar situations.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've seen this through your work. There's a lot of pain right now aligned with the community because I think if you have full plates, as all of us do as
Mm.
mothers, what it takes to expand what I
Yeah.
like to call your orientation around this for your children, because it does take a lot of energy as a typical mortal here.
Yeah. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy, and, like, that's one of the things, because people are reaching out and saying, like, "What can we do?" And there's a few people who said, "I wanna put money toward, like, centers or something," and
Hmm.
I think, like, respite care is really important, like, try to create camps or places for, in like, families where they can go and enjoy, but also have, like, care for non-speakers or even,
Hmm.
like, a university setting where maybe it's like there is a chance for higher education where it could be accommodated with a lot of supports, or even like an entire family could go live at this beautiful university for 4 years with a non-speaker. So, I think there's so much that's going to be happening in the next decade. I'm just praying it all comes together.
I think, yes, and I think
Yeah.
it will, because I think, again, the network effect, it's like
Yeah.
there's a reason why we're turning what is seen as a weakness in individuality and it's now becoming this shared reality of expansive togetherness. I never I say in a lot of my keynote talks, having 2 children with non-speaking autism was not on my bingo card, right? When I was
No.
living in the Upper West Side in New York, white picket fence light ahead of me,
Yeah.
I was just planning the next trip we were to Disney World.
Right.
And the expansion of it, because I believe I was always open to this,
Yeah.
has never in any capacity been the wrong choice for the growth of life outside of me and my
Yeah.
children and family. And I can only imagine what you feel in producing and filming, and like you said, hoping and praying that in the next 10 years, this just.
Yeah. Well, I think right now too, I mean, it is so hard. I mean, for just parents in general, it's hard. But then you bring on someone who, into the family who needs often 24/7 care and just a different level of care. Like it can be absolutely exhausting and difficult to figure out how to get time to learn to spell or have like, what we were filming for the film was someone who was getting an intensive spelling lesson at home 2 times a week. And it was monumentally fast how quickly they got open. And for us, it was like, okay, this needs to be a thing. So any additional money that we have coming in right now, we're putting into this nonprofit called TTT Education and
Yes.
Impact. And like starting next year, we're just going to try to give away spelling grants and allow people to have private coaches come into their homes or maybe do an app that can help people like get connected with a spelling coach. But my goal is to make spelling free and accessible to as many families as can because like families need supports. They don't need more costs and they don't need more exhaustion,
Well,
right? They just
I always
need,
say that the loopholes to get through are one thing, but it does take a lot
yeah.
for those people that I don't want to say skeptics, but there's a lot of fear in like the unknown about is
Yeah.
this going to be worth the energy to put into it?
Yeah.
And I think that the more in which we talk about it through, again, my children's, they're on the earlier side of spell to communicate, but also that we are all receiving energy in different ways. And back to what we said a few moments ago, it actually is going to give back to the mothers and caregivers energy to continue on to learn and to challenge
Yeah.
those narratives, because
Yeah.
that respite is one thing, but the facilitated communication and the energy exchange within those. You want to talk about fueling me? I remember that first Friday I saw my 2 in an earlier session, and I was on fire, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there is
Yeah.
no doubt that I don't care how many few hours I slept the night before, that was fueling. And I
Yeah.
think that parents will need to know that they will be fueled from this just as much as their children are going to be
Totally.
fueled by their success in spell to communicate
And it
and
might take
spelling.
a different coach. I mean, that is the thing. Like, you have to have a coach who is
Yes.
patient and believes in you. And I think there's so many good coaches out there. There's also not great coaches out there or not as experienced. So it's like finding the right coach. But if you follow the recipe, it will work. Will work. It's just remarkable. And I think another part of that, like to your point, is that I understand. I think anyone who loves and knows non-speakers and their families understands how many things parents have tried that didn't work or didn't pan out how they thought. And I know that spelling can be like another thing, another try, but I've never seen it not work if you stick with it. And sometimes it takes like years of going back and forth and trying. But the other thing that I think is essential to that is just belief, like truly believing you're in there, you can do this, you're in there, you can do this is so huge. And like we actually watched that unfold a few times when we were filming the Telepathy Tapes film, which will be coming out next year. And there'd be times where we were like, okay, we have to try to fly everyone to our, quote unquote hill set, like in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina. And a lot of families were like, I don't think my non-speaker can fly, or I don't think they'll be able to sit in the car that long, or I don't think it will work. And like, I was just like, just believe in them, believe, they will rise to the occasion. And it was interesting because every non-speaker did. They sat on a plane for 3 hours if normally they've never been able to do that. They were able to like make it in the car and then off into a plane. And if they haven't been able to do that. And I think it's just so beautiful. And the same thing happened when we were filming in England. There was a non-speaker there that picked up a pen and started writing with a pen on paper. And his mom was like, he's obviously knows that this is important to
Yes.
represent. And he's like rising to the occasion in a way that I've rarely seen. It just, obviously there's competence. So there's that too, but also just like we all have that drive to succeed and meet the expectation for ourselves. And it can be hard to believe that sometimes, I know, during this daily struggles, but like believing in someone is so important.
It is. And I think that the more in which we change the conditioning of society's narrative to what they are capable of,
Mhm.
and as I shared, I love to serve the mothers and caregivers to believe what you are capable of too. I
Mhm.
think that like you're saying, the fear or the worry of even getting to the set that where you were
Mhm.
recording creates a lot of just energy use in the parents and caregivers. When we can remember that no one else is going to be able to do this but you, and if that belief in your child, that does have the germination roots within you, and you are of your child, and your child is of you, and that you're doing this together, and that just keeps growing. I'm a big proponent of interacting with the world versus isolating. As
Mhm.
hard as it can be, it never is the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And I love to hear that you say that it does begin and end with that belief. And
Mhm.
the unconditional love that the wheels, once they're in motion, it's almost like you can't stop that belief system.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
that what your work, and I hope that mine sits next to it, is reminding that Kai can't tell you what to do. The Spell to Communicate founder cannot tell you exactly what to do.
Mm-mm.
I wish I could tell every single mother that comes to me, Sarah, what's the next right thing? I have no idea. I know I could probably do better than like a typical mom, but like
Yeah.
but it's in you. It's already there, and you know it so deeply, and it's going to let your child thrive and flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and even just setting up that intention is so like, and I have a 6-year-old who's neurotypical, but, he's has a lot of sensitivity and
Mhm.
some behavior stuff, and he was been
Mhm.
really interacting, like, just kind of being bonkers and almost,
Mhm.
like, borderline mean the
Yeah.
past, like, few
Mhm.
weeks,
Mhm.
and I was like, "What do I how do" and I was like, "Okay, what would be the good advice I give to someone?" So I
Yeah.
ended up, like, being like, "I'm gonna go get, like, a project and train and just give him a lot of attention and love, like, just go out the other way," and, like, it was transformational for him just to be like, "Okay, we're gonna sit down on the ground and focus, and I'm gonna wrap you in love," and it's just like I just think those basic things sometimes, even though it can be so hard, it's just like, just try to meet someone exactly where they're at and cover them in love, and, like, one of the non-speakers too that was so interesting, like, who was really dysregulated when we were filming, once, in Connecticut. Her sister was like, she needs to come into the forest and that will really help her. Like, we were like, should we leave? Like, it was like, a level of dysregulation where I felt like it's not going to be easy for the family or this non-speaker that day. And like, we went to the forest and she just completely like melted into like this calm and almost like powerful calm. And it was beautiful. And so I just think like every single one of us has something, right, that's going to help us regulate, that's going to help us calm down. Like I know Susie Miller has done a lot with like, the tuning forks or different fabrics, or whether it's music or whether it's stones or crystals. Like I know those can deeply impact various non-speakers. So it's like, what is the thing? And don't toss out anything because it might feel too
Yes.
woo woo or you don't
But
know
not
what's
yeah,
gonna
you
work.
you don't know what you don't know, and it's
Right.
always again, I think that I'm a child of the early '80s, right? And I grew up in the '90s where, like, everything was great. Like, I think I always laugh, I'm like, us Xennials, like, I mean, we can laugh about being in the like, growing up in the analog time and then being able to go so digital, but man, we are sitting as the parents of this next generation of non-speakers and having more autistic children in our children's communities. And I think that the more in which we say yes to any opportunity, anything that could help with regulation, anything that could help with just an expansion of your norm is
Yeah.
never wrong. And I don't know how to ever say that without just living it and just
Yeah.
being that with Millie and Mac and,
Yeah.
and pivoting where necessary and not making or staking anything to be so solid. I know that the next topic I was just thinking of, the scientific community, even with all the data that you guys have, is just constantly pushing back on it for validation. And I think that the strides that are being made are just going to continue to validate that data and have it not be unable to not be seen
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what's been so cool is like, it was really vulnerable at first because to put any of this out there, because I felt like it was just me traveling around with often Michael, my
Yeah.
camera person, and then the family. So it was like almost like our word against the world's. And then what was so beautiful though is like there's been quite a number of scientists, and if they're doing it the right way, they do what Dr. Mossbridge actually did, which was
Mhm.
form relationships
That's
with
right.
families, with students, with teachers. Make sure that and understand, like, you can trust me. I will meet you where you at. I love you. I accept you. And I mean, Julia's been like a shining example of a researcher who's like, I'm not just going to go do an experiment. Like with this population, you have to earn the trust. You have to learn how to like move within the space that fits them, and in doing so, the team of researchers that she started doing not just telepathy tests with, but mind discovery to make
Right.
sure you're authoring your own words, you're spelling your own thoughts. All of those tests were extraordinarily validating. Other researchers who've gone and looked at this too are like, okay, there's a there. We might not be able to explain it yet, but this isn't not real. And I think that's been awesome because the more and more people that are starting to experience it, and I think hopefully because of the telepathy tapes and so many brave families like yours who are out there like willing to talk about it and also showcase this and type of thing, all those people are having a ripple effect, right? They're all having a ripple effect. And then it's going to just become common knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I know Dr. Mossbridge and I sit similar with like unconditional love being so baked into our number one reason and mission. And I really do believe that if you have an opposite to that, it's not hate, it's fear. It's not unconditional love. Is the opposite of that is fear. And I think when talking and expressing and sharing these experiences through your work, and then the one-off of the mothers and caregivers that I bring on to talk about their own journeys and stories, it is so apparent that the ones that are most powerful in how they share are the ones that don't lead or have learned to harness their fear and transform it into unconditional love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
Yep.
think and then that acceptance of all that, of the life that we do have as parents with these children, then transforms.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And,
I can
no,
keep
I
going,
think you're
but
right.
like,
And just, yeah. And being able to surrender all your preconceived ideas and beliefs and thoughts. I mean, truly, because all of this requires a major paradigm shift. All of it does. I mean, it is truly, in a way, looking at people who've been treated like the least among us and being like, no, you have a lot to teach. You could teach us too,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the things that like I've been like hoping and, almost begging people to see is like, regardless of your worldview walking into this, regardless of your culture, or your religion, whatever it is, like if we're going to have a paradigm shift, we all have to sit back and be willing to ask some really hard questions, evaluate things. And if you do that, you're going to end up probably more equipped on the other side with a stronger belief because it will be based in things that have been tested and questioned and opened up
Correct.
and renewed,
Right. I mean, the work how I met Dr. Mossbridge is through the work of two gentlemen, Brian Riviera and Mark McGrath, who really are the scholars on John Boyd and the OODA loop sketch, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's centered on our orientation is like the engine of our souls and humanity. And our orientation is based on our genetic heritage, our life experiences, our culture, our age, all these things, our genetics, and how we have to constantly shatter that to grow our orientation in order to become individuals who make whose perspective and perception is enlarged. And that is difficult. That is not
Yeah.
comfortable to do. And
No.
I think that one of the things I think in cultural today is that I haven't, you haven't, but I think there's a majority don't want to feel any discomfort. I
Right.
don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I will do anything to not feel uncomfortable. And that includes actually, I think, not telling the truth. And that's also something that is deep within when I see my children just truly
Yeah.
telling the truth or
Yeah.
living in reality. It does shake you awake because you realize,
Yeah.
is it comfortable? No. But
Right.
what does it reveal?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Like in that discomfort, can you only find the truth? Right. I mean, every great quest takes a lot of bravery. And I always think about it as like, I remember being at a museum when I was a kid and they were talking about how like an armor that's been tested is like better than like shiny new armor. And it's just like, it's so true, right? If you have like gone through the battles and like you've earned all the stuff, like, you can trust the skin you're in, you can trust the heart you have or the beliefs you have. But like, I don't think you can trust them if you don't open them up to like vast exploration, vast questioning, vast
So
paradigm
listen,
shifting.
the
Yeah.
Socratic method there's a reason why
Yeah.
it stayed so so
Yeah.
truthful throughout time. I mean, asking questions is never the wrong choice. Even ones that make us think differently or make us feel something. I'm sure through my 42 years, when you're asked a question that seeks to understand me or my partner or my sister, it never, even if it makes you feel tingly or, oh, this is a little uncomfortable. Gosh, when you can speak that and speak your answer to that and have what it reveals to you, I think then when I think about my non-speakers,
Mm-hmm.
what they're just wanting to reveal. Those children they are craving. They are so deserving of being able to reveal, just like
Mm-hmm.
we are. And we find discomfort in revealing, yet when they're given the opportunity, it's only unconditional love that they share,
Yeah. Yeah.
start to finish.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that is like when I look at like our greatest, I mean, I think it's the thing that every non speaker that I've ever met has put forth is just this necessary need to love each other and to get out of the camps we're in, to stop dividing about whether it's politics or religion or gender or whatever it is. It's just love, love, love. We're all connected. We're all one.
I
And
wanted to go back to what you were saying. We kind of strayed
mhm.
off from the ethical part of it, real and how the energy it takes to meet the non-speaker. And I was laughing with someone at an event recently. I said, we have to. We need to give more energy to them because they are using so much energy to, I think, share. As you know, we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what they're able to tell us and what we can learn from them. But we need to ethically do our part. This is not just all on them. We have to continue to build that bridge and expend our energy
Yeah,
for them to be
right.
able to share.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like I think it's ethically, I think as a human, we are bound, we have to do that.
Right. Yeah, we have to become a safe place to land. And I think that's been true throughout history, right? Like there could be
Right.
great messages, but unless people are ready to hear it, like it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Hmm.
And so, like, you look back at what people might have been saying 200 years ago, and it would have sounded awful,
Hmm.
like heresy, right? That
Hmm.
like women should be
Hmm.
allowed to vote.
Right.
You know, you have to have a society who's ready to hear it, which means society has to do their work and meet people and and break apart their own assumptions in order to hear certain messages. And I think that again, like the non-speakers that I've met, it's always a message of love. Love
Hmm.
and unity about wanting to protect the environment, deeply concerned with matters of the spirit.
Hmm.
I mean, truly, it's like all the things that we've ever heard, like that money doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, love them, don't hate.
Hmm.
And people seem like, oh yeah, they love the telepathy tapes, they love this. It's like, okay, but you have to do that work. You have to like
You have
clean
to
your
prime
thoughts.
you have to prime, yourself. And there's a lot of unbecoming that the typical ones like us have to owe it to the non-speakers to do.
Hmm.
I think about, how hard it must be to live in a world where you're unable to communicate and you have to take in all these things and you can't even tell anyone what is comfortable, what is not. We owe it to them. And
Hmm.
I can only, I know it's fuel for my work, but I think about, like you said, the camps, maybe those camps just become us all priming the ones
Yeah.
around us in our communities to be open to this
Yeah.
because, I'm not saying anything new. You have started a deep, beautiful, unconditional love movement. This is so beyond speakers and non-speakers and autism and apraxia. This is a movement of unconditional love and deep inner knowing that is undeniable. And it is having a fractal effect in families, in communities, online. I mean, I know that you guys just won the award for, what is it, the most shared podcast?
Yeah.
What does that say? What does that say about us? We are craving to find community in this work that you're doing.
Yeah. That was cool because, we didn't spend any advertising. I
Right.
mean, we've never spent money on advertising. And especially that first season, like we didn't have a social media presence or PR, any of that the first season, which was the one that really kind of took off. And that is really cool that people are like, Mom, you have to listen to this, or brother or friend or
I mean,
coworker.
that's like the greatest thing ever. I mean, I think what is the best way to feel pride about work is knowing that someone took time out of their crazy day to share it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for knowing that this had to be done. This is the work that had to be done. And in doing so, I hope that you're feeling the love in spades from everyone that is touched by your work and the presence of your work, and that you're asked to join into. So I know that you've changed the world in which I can share about my children. And I know I'm not unique in that aspect. So thank you so much, Kai, for all that you've done for the non-speakers in this world. All right. Well, until next time on the In Sense podcast, thank you again.
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome.